What's up, internet? My name's Ori. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. You like this video, hit that like button, hit that notification bell. You'll never miss a video. You'll never miss a stream. Today we're going over Digital Daily number 20 for Big Brother Canada 11. The first real big convo we had was John and Hope. So they were kind of chatting about how Ty needs to go. John was saying how ignorant he is. Even to Claudia, saying that, or how he was saying like, oh, what are you whispering about over there? And he's like, at first I thought he was joking, but he was like very serious about it. So yeah, John and Hope are definitely on board with Ty needs to go. They do worry though. They worry about how close Kuzi and Ty are. John thinks she's on board with getting Ty out, but they definitely worry about that. And they for sure want Santina to stay over Ty. Now, here's an interesting little thing. We know about the Crown Alliance, but is there a possibility there's another alliance? And I'm not 100% sure because the word the sword was said. And I'm assuming that is John and Hope, maybe Santina. I'm not 100% sure, but the way they were talking about it does kind of lean towards she might be in this with them and they call themselves the sword. Or the sword might just be John and Hope. I haven't been able to kind of pinpoint that down, but the context of the conversation does tend to lead towards Santina is in there because again, they were talking about how, you know, they wanted her to stay, like, you know, they can't let her go. And how Hope wants to spend less time with Santina, so they're not seeming as close. There might have been some other implications in there too, because he says like, oh, you know, I want to, you know, spend more time with like people like Nene, right? Like I'll let you spend time with Claudia because that's your thing. But if I can get closer with Nene, spend less time with Santina, that's probably good because I don't want to seem too close. I can't let that happen. And I'm not 100% sure if he just meant game-wise there. There may have been some implications of him getting feelings romantically for Santina. Which, if so, I don't think his girlfriend would be too happy about that. She may have to send another letter in to get to Hope and make sure that message gets through. They talked about how Dan was doing his pitches, but it's just way too little, way too late. You know, they're over 30 days into this game, and now he wants to talk game. And then it is confirmed that Santina did tell Hope that she won the HoH. And they kind of lock in that they're each other's number ones in this game. Again, are they a duo called the Sword? Which is interesting. That would be our first named duo alliance. Or is it with Santina in there? For now, I'm including Santina in that Sword alliance, which is kind of that offshoot of the Crown, even though Santina's not in that. We can actually pull up the alliance chart because I've labeled it with a question mark. With a question mark because it's not confirmed that Santina is in there. It could just be Hope and Jonathan who are in there, but obviously we have the Crown up top, the Shady Bunch who are sitting pretty right in that middle. You got the girls plus Daniel, the girly pops on the other side as well, and Ty and Dan in the middle. There were a lot of interesting conversations about how whose targets are going to be where moving forward. So let's kind of continue to break some of this down. This was another really interesting conversation that we had up next. Anika and Daniel. And it sounds like Kuzi may be in some trouble with them. So Daniel was saying how like she doesn't just want to like play, like she wants to be great. And she's such a powerful player. Everyone loves her. She will definitely take a shot and take them out if she needed to. Like she would blow up games if she had to. And they're just really aware that Kuzi's going to be a threat, especially later on in this game. So Kuzi might be in trouble with her two closest allies. When that would happen, probably not anytime soon, right? Like there's bigger fish to fry than Kuzi, but they're aware that Kuzi's probably the front runner to win this game right now if she stays, and that she needs to go at some point. And then they talk about how Daniel thinks that Kuzi told Ty that he won veto. He's not sure, but he's got a feeling like she's sharing more information with Ty than she really should be. Eventually, Renee enters that, and the chat kind of ends. We then get Claudia making some pitches. First to Santina, where she's just kind of pitching for votes and saying, how both of them had this connection to Ty. She knows that like something weird's going on with Santina and Ty. She's like, I don't know what happened the other day between you two, but I'm kind of staying out of it. And she says how like they had these connections with Ty differently, but also similarly strong, but they never were really able to come together. And Santina kind of says how like she wasn't ever sure how much she could tell Claudia things without her just running and telling Ty. Claudia mentions how she's really going to be able to be good at separating game and personal, and how she wants to make moves. And even kind of says like, yeah, like that would be kind of crazy if I made that move and on Ty. So it would be interesting to see if Claudia did win HOH in these coming weeks and Ty's still around. Would she put him on the block? That would be interesting. I don't think she would do it unless it was like in the double. Unless she won HOH in the middle of a double, I think she would put Ty up there. But otherwise, I just don't see her doing it with having to have a week with him in the game still, sitting on the block at her hands. I just don't see how she would be able to pull that off. She then end up meeting with Hope and having a little chat about, pitching the votes, pretty much the same thing. And Hope's like, look, you already know where my vote is. And again, it was very similar pitch that she had to Santina about how, her and Santina had connections through Ty. She does something very similar with Hope where she says like, we both have, strong connections with Renee, but, the two of us haven't really come together and had a lot of chat. So now's kind of a time where they can maybe build that bond a little bit more. We then move on to Hope and Jonathan, who Hope just kind of fills him in on how his convo went with Claudia and says, Ty is feeling very comfortable, but only because he thinks people like Kuzi and Claudia are working with him, which is what John had kind of told him earlier. So Hope's like, you were right. Eventually, Kuzi comes in and says Dan's pitch, again, was just way too late in this game. Like, they're way too far along. But he did almost clock the whole Crown Alliance and said how people see it. The only one he didn't really kind of include in it was Daniel C. But otherwise, Dan had like pretty much nailed that Anika, Kuzi, John, and Hope all are working together. And they're like, how? Like, how could he even see this? Because like, we don't even spend a lot of time together. And it was just really kind of weird. Now, the next thing that kind of happens is where I think Kuzi is going to end up shooting herself in the foot. Like I said, Daniel and Anika, they're already seeing how Kuzi is a threat in this game and someone they're going to eventually need to get out. And I talked about in a couple of other of my videos now at this point that Kuzi will sometimes feel overconfident and overstep in how she's dealing with people. And I know if I was in that house, it would end up making me not want to trust her more. With giving Daniel an ultimatum here, where they had Hope kind of ask her like, hey, how was your chat with Ty? Like, what was going on with that? And Kuzi just kind of explains, they were just, getting on the same page and like kind of smoothing things over there. But she says, whenever I have conversations, like we're always here. Like, don't doubt me, right? Don't have questions about me. Like, just trust. And she kind of says like, the way you said that, I didn't really like. And like, she's done that before where she's kind of told Hope, like, you have to watch how you ask things. And it's like, listen, I get if somebody is asking you something that way and you don't like it, that's perfectly fine. But in this game, you have to be very careful about how you go about addressing issues like this. And the way Kuzi does it feels like it just makes things worse instead of de-escalating the situation. She usually will go on the offensive instead of like, oh, you know what? I'm sorry that you were kind of having doubts there. Like, I promise you, like, there's nothing going on, and being nice about it. Because that's what you have to do in this game. You can't then have somebody, pointing the finger at you and then point the finger back at them. That's how you drift apart. But you need to be able to build things closer And I feel like Kuzi doesn't do that well enough. She's always trying to feel like she's in the right, so therefore she has the ability to say, hey, you came at me wrong there. And maybe she is in the right. And in the real world, that's a great way to be able to stand up for yourself. But in this game, you have to be sugarcoating everything and make it smoother instead of making it rougher. And they just kind of go on after that to kind of just solidify their group and talk about trust and things like that. Santina ends up entering and they talk about the Dan pitch again. But eventually Anika and Kuzi leave and Santina talks about the chat she had with Claudia. They kind of compare notes about how it was similar. But Santina tells her about how Claudia was talking about putting Ty on the block and how nuts that would be. And how Claudia didn't say that to Hope. But it would be interesting to see it happen. Hope has doubts that she would do it. I do as well. We then get Anika and Kuzi talking again more about how Dan was talking game and it was only now. So again, very little, very too late for Dan to be talking game. And also how apparently Dan's like big pitch was he wanted to go against Ty, right? Like at this point, he's like, I can be your weapon against Ty. And it's like, really? Like that's your pitch? They also then talk about Hope and how he was questioning Ty and Kuzi's conversation. Ty apparently also pitched a 5-person alliance with basically the Shady Bunch, Anika, Daniel, and Kuzi, Ty, and Claudia. So it would be kind of a 5-person alliance there, but they're like, I like Claudia, but they do find Ty way less trustworthy than John and Hope at the moment, just because of how he seems to be in kind of this like vengeful mode. And Anika says that, her bigger threats are Santina and Renee, and they need to really go. Kuzi actually says like, hey, like Ty needs to go first. Like if we get a shot at Ty, we need to take it. But I don't 100% know with Kuzi sometimes because she contradicts herself all the time on that because she then also says, I don't think he would go after them right now. So it's really, I don't know. It's an interesting thing with these dailies because we don't get everything and we're trying to piece together stuff. So it's hard to really tell, where people's heads are at. But you would think in a conversation with Kuzi and Anika, you could trust a lot of what's being said here. Eventually Claudia joins them. And again, they just kind of talk about pitches. And they do talk about how Santina needs to go and she is a big threat. Eventually she leaves and Jonathan joins where he just kind of apologizes for Hope, saying how he gets like too excited about stuff. And Kuzi said that Ty actually told her like, hey, like you got to be careful and you can't fully trust Hope. Because again, he gets like so excited and if you tell him the full scope of all the plans, he might leak things and get too excited and tell people stuff. Eventually, Jonathan leaves, that Connor's, or actually, no, Jonathan does stick around because they were talking about the double eviction, plans. And Anika says like she would probably put up Santina and Renee because they were talking about how, you got to think quickly. There's like no time for the discussion. So you have to kind of have your plan ready. And John says like, oh, I get that. Like, because you guys have a better relationship with Ty. So I get it. But like, he's like, I would put up Ty. And Anika says, well, I would put up Renee and Santina because they're working together. Huh? She's like, if you put up one, you got to put up both of them because they're together. Anika is kind of clueless because then later Daniel comes in. Jonathan ends up leaving. And then Daniel was talking about how Hope drives him insane and he's like a little kid. And he's actually worried about Hope and Santina working together. And Anika's like, no, that's not happening. She's working with Renee. Anika's clueless in this game, and it's kind of funny. I was down on Daniel, but it almost feels sometimes like Daniel sees the game better than almost anybody else in the house. He just doesn't know what to do with it, right? Like he's got all this information and he's trying to, find his place in the house, but it's like he has no agency to really be able to actually make any moves. And he sees where everybody is, but he then listens to like Anika who goes, oh no, that's not happening. Anika is just clueless, absolutely clueless. I mentioned in the episode recap about how she was saying that Santina's not smart enough to put that number. Anika, you just a penny less. And she actually comes clean on her. She's like, yeah, that was dumb to go a penny less. I should have thought that if anybody went and did like 23, that's going to bring the average weight down less than a penny. It's like, yeah, Nika, you think the average was going to be lower than 1 penny lower than 50K? You think? Oh, Anika, you seem like a great person. Like, geez, you are really a mess inside this house. Eventually, Nene comes in, and they kind of talk about, just random stuff. I think there's like pudding that somebody had made. I think it was Renee. They were going to try the pudding, and she kind of comes and goes a couple of times. And while that's happening, they were actually talking about how they wished it was Nene who ended up on the block and not Claudia. They kind of wondered like what her game even really was. And they say it was probably just a showmance. Like she wanted it with Rob, but it never happened. And then eventually we got Claudia and Ty kind of talking in the bathroom, and she kind of asked him how his convo with Kuzi was, but Ty, just being Ty, was like, oh, went well. That's like literally all he gives her. And it's like, I just don't understand, Claudia. Like, why? Why do you keep hanging out with this guy? Like, it does not make any sense to me. But you know what? You can't always pick who you love, I guess. But that really kind of covers it, because after that they ended up going downstairs and they were eating pudding. Yeah, it was a pudding taste test. I think apparently they used what was it? Some kind of not regular milk, but like almond milk in one of the puddings, and Daniel was like, I don't know about this, and it was, yeah, that's what that part of the daily was. Anyway, we could take another look here at our alliance chart, because again, that really kind of wraps things up. We do have the episode tonight where we'll see the veto competition take place. We already know that Daniel won it and used it on Ty and then Claudia was put up as a replacement. Will we finally get mention of the crown? Maybe we'll get some clarification on who the sword is when we finally get the mention of the crown, because that seems like that is where the Shady Bunch are more loyal to. Again, because Anika is very much not wanting to work with Renee. They both kind of think that she's a threat, which, to be honest, Renee is probably a threat right now. She's someone that if she got to the end, would have a decent shot at winning. She's probably in like the top 3 as far as people who would win if they were in the top 2. I think Kuzi is number 1 on that list. I think after Kuzi, probably Jonathan has the best shot at winning if he gets to the final 2. And then I think Renee is up there as well. I think Renee would get a lot of votes over everybody else if she was in there against anyone other than Kuzi and Jonathan. So yeah, those are probably the top 3 front runners at the moment. And then if I had to pick somebody after that, maybe Daniel, then maybe Anika. They would be probably the front runners. I don't think Nene has any shot. Claudia, you know what? Claudia's probably up there too. She has some good relationships with everybody. So I think she could get some votes, but she couldn't be up there against many of the bigger players. Hope, I just don't think anybody really respects his game enough to vote for him to win. Anika, maybe, but I don't know. And then Ty and Dan, I don't think there's a shot that they get anywhere near the final 2. I think they're the 2 bigger targets. Dan obviously leaving this week. Ty probably in the double eviction is when he goes. The only way I don't see Ty going in a double eviction is if he wins the HoH. And then at that point, depending on where he decided to go, I feel like Jonathan and Hope could be in a lot of trouble come that double if he is in charge, because it could be one of them going up on the block. But what do you guys think? What did you think of the daily? Are you excited for the episode and tomorrow's eviction? It kind of seems almost like a foregone conclusion that Dan will be evicted. But yeah, let me know in those comments down below what you think of everything going on. Also, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate all the support you give me on this channel. There's links to all of my other socials in the description and pinned comment down below. Things like my Twitter, my Twitch, my Discord. You can find the new Kick stream. Go follow the Kick stream and all that stuff in the description, pinned comment. Follow what you want, ignore what you want. But again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.